I started realizing that there's so much misinformation out there,
right?
Health information. So when doctors show their personality on social media, they become more relatable. So they're no longer just like a doctor in scrubs or a white coat. They feel like, people feel like they get to know them.
Welcome, everyone, to the MedFluencers Podcast. We have Dr. Brian Boxer Wachler on today, an ophthalmologist and a very famous social media healthcare influencer himself. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks. And that's just my twin. You see him on social.
Fair enough. Well, the grandfather of Factor Cap and all sorts of other stuff, we will get into that. But welcome, first off, if you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
So I'm an ophthalmologist, eye surgeon, practice in Beverly Hills, California, and on staff at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. And I've got twin girls who are now 17, seniors in high school. So going through all that college stuff, which is exciting but stressful for everybody.
Sure. Very good. So tell us a little bit about how you got on social media. And we don't have to talk about age, but you're a little bit further on in life than maybe some of the younger folks. So tell us how you got to this point, especially in medicine.
So speaking of age, I used to be brunette, just like you.
Fair enough.
So you know.
I have something to look forward to then. It looks great on you. It looks great.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
It's distinguished.
Exactly.
So I actually fell into social media because during the pandemic, when things slowed down, my daughter said to me, who were 14 at the time, they said, "Dad, there are some really good doctors on TikTok and we think you'd be great. We can get you started."
Yeah.
I said, well, kind of nothing better to do, so let's do it. So they got me started and I started realizing that there's so much misinformation out there,
right?
Health information, beauty information, that these videos are going viral with hundreds of thousands and millions of views, and people are relying on this information. So I felt like, okay, there's got to be a sheriff in town at some point. So I'm going to be that sheriff and start
badge on,
start calling out the videos, and that's where it really started.
Very good. So almost the fact checker of healthcare and specifically eye care on social media.
Right. So I do eye care, but I also do a lot of healthcare way outside of my core specialty.
Love that.
So I just, in my mind, decided in the very beginning, even though I'm an eye doctor, ophthalmologist, I'm not going to limit myself to commenting on those videos because I can research. I've published over 50 papers in the peer-reviewed literature. I know how to research stuff.
Right.
So I can research anything in the medical literature and determine if it's valid or not.
And it's amazing you mentioned how many papers that you've published, because from the guests that we've had on the podcast, it continues to blow my mind how distinguished all of you are and how experienced in your own right. You know, people may see, oh, it's a social media doctor, they're just messing around on social media, but you're the real deal. And as many are, I think this is helping to show that light. I mean, who have you met, I guess, on social media? How has it helped you connect with other physicians?
It's been really fun because when I first started, I felt like I was a bit of an island. And then when I started to meet other doctors and collaborate and talk on the phone, and I had my book that got published, and I interviewed a number of them and really got to know them too through that process. It's been a great camaraderie, almost like this informal club, if you will. And it's been fun personally and also professionally to get to know everybody, including yourself.
I appreciate that. And right back at you, I agree as well. You mentioned your book. Let's jump into this because I find this fascinating. So I will hold any introductions and let you take it away. Tell us the title, what your book is about, and what actually drove you to write this.
So the book is called Influenced: The Impact of Social Media on Our Perception. And through my experiences the last few years of watching social media, how people were being affected by it, good and bad, I felt like I wanted to do almost like an opus type of work or manuscript. And I really dove into the research and my experience and talking to other influencers who opened up about their experience and insights of the good and the bad, and ultimately how people can use social media to help themselves and also to be wary of the pitfalls that are out there, because there's plenty of those too. And that's really what drove me to do the book, because there's not any resource out there about social media for people from somebody who's also an insider too, who really knows under the hood what's going on.
Absolutely. And you've had some incredible appearances as a result of this book as well. Where has that taken you?
So I was really fortunate. I was on Dr. Phil. I was on the Tamron Hall show. I've been on numerous local news broadcasts for interviews and podcasts as well. And it was a great, great experience because there was such a hunger for people wanting to know more about the book and what are some of the tips and the tricks. And I always give a lot of pearls in these interviews too, which of course reflect really the big iceberg of information under the surface, which is what the book is about.
Right. Well, we'll make sure to link to the book. Of course, we want our listeners to check that out as well. Now, you mentioned the bad, the good and the bad. What do you think are the good? What's the positive of having physicians or healthcare providers on social media?
Is that it really expands their reach, because we all practice in a little bit of a bubble, right? In our practice or in the hospital, and having doctors on social media really expand their ability to educate people and help people understand information that can ultimately help them better treat what's important and going on in their lives to improve their lives.
Do you ever find that patients will watch your content and either find you or ask about things that you've talked about, or ask, because of a video that they saw on social media, they have a new question for their doctor?
Well, one of my specialties is keratoconus, which is where the cornea, the outer lens of the eye, is weak and bulges out. So I've had a lot of patients come in and say, or even just contact us through Instagram and say, thank you so much. How can I learn more about this treatment? My doctor never told me about these things. They only said you have to have a cornea transplant. And so helping change people's lives, even if they are never going to come in and be a patient, but just them getting that information about alternative keratoconus treatments like Intax, a little implant, or Holcomb C3R cross-linking, named after a bobsledder I treated who won a gold medal.
Wow.
These all can avoid a cornea transplant. And a lot of times patients are just excited to know that there's something beyond what their doctor told them about, which is you just got to get a cornea transplant for this condition.
I think it underscores one of the most impressive things to me about the reach of social media is that we can reach these niche target audiences of various patient demographics and give them information that they want. People want to take control of their care in this current generation. They want to understand their treatments and understand their options. And it sounds like that's what you're seeing in your practice as well.
Definitely. People nowadays want to research what a recommendation was given. They just don't accept it usually. And they want to go find out if that's actually true or what's out there. So the whole internet world that we live in, and now social media, has opened up a lot of information and empowerment for people out there in the health realm.
And misinformation, which brings us right full circle back to where you said of being the sheriff of the town. And I really like that sentiment, because having trusted healthcare professionals on social media who are transparent about their credentials and share information and build relationships with their audience, it allows us to have trusted sources and information for the masses. And I think that's special.
Absolutely. So when doctors show their personality on social media, they become more relatable. So they're no longer just like a doctor in scrubs or a white coat. They feel like, people feel like they get to know them because they open up about themselves or show parts of their personal life. And so it's a different level of connection. A lot of times that doesn't even exist in an actual patient-doctor relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Brian, one final question for you. As social media as a landscape changes so much, almost month to month, where do you see this going?
I just see it getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Of course, the platforms may evolve. There may be new platforms that don't even exist now, the way TikTok just popped out of nowhere and overtook Facebook and Instagram. So it's just going to continue to evolve, but it's definitely not going away. So people really need to understand social media, how to use it to their benefit, but also how to protect themselves from some of the pitfalls too. And so as an ophthalmologist, I see all kinds of conditions and talk about all kinds of conditions ranging from dry eyes to cataracts, and we talked about keratoconus. But even now, one factor for dry eyes is, believe it or not, there are little mites that can exist on the edge of the eyelids that can cause irritation in dry eyes. So there's a whole range of things that we cover in social media.
I feel a video explanation coming for that, because as a physician myself, but an ER doctor, I've never heard of eye mites, but the idea of a little bug on my eye just doesn't sit well.
Yeah, and it can cause havoc. I mean, dry eyes, redness, irritation, itching, and really make people's life very unpleasant.
Wow. Well, it sounds like maybe we have a whole other video to do on that. Dr. Brian Boxer Wachler, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Anything last words for our audience?
No, just, have open eyes out there. Don't be afraid of social media. And if you're a parent, and I talk about this in the book too, for parents, for tips for their kids and monitoring social media, but don't be afraid to join the apps to understand what your kids are in the middle of doing. So sometimes that makes the pulse go up a little bit when they think how to join like TikTok or Snapchat, but it really is your responsibility as a parent to get on those apps to see what they're doing. And the book talks a lot about that too.
Well, I love that. Thank you again for coming on, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks for listening to the MedFluencers Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and check out our other episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, Amazon, and more.